Hello and welcome back to Learning the Lyre for Beginners. This is Sharon, and today we are going to be looking at our hand position when we are using the glide method. Now for the glide method, it's a little bit different. The technique is much different than you would for the harp plucking method because we are not plucking the strings. We are literally gliding. So what we do, I'll use my index finger here just to show you very briefly, is we take a string, we place our finger on the string, we apply a little bit of pressure, and we release. So we're essentially just pressing and releasing. So we're just gliding off. That's why it's called a therapeutic glide, because it's really gliding off the strings. So we're not plucking, we're not doing this. That's a different method. We are taking our finger and we are plucking, and we're really using the fleshy part of our finger. So if you think about the harping method, the part that we are using when we pluck is the inside part. Sorry, this part here. I'm not sure if you can see that. There you go. This part here is what we are using for plucking. When we are gliding, we are using the opposite side. So this works really well if you play the harp and find that you need a break from your harp because you are getting blisters on this side of your finger. On the lyre, you use the opposite side. So if you need to take a little bit of a break, it works well that way. That's part of what I do when I'm playing and my finger is sore from playing the harp, because you use a different side, it works quite well. Now, there is a technique when you are playing the lyre, and for the glide method, difference from doing the scale on a harp method, you normally would go with your C, you would take your ring finger and you would pluck, and using your hands, you would go ring, middle, and then your index, thumb, and you cross over, land. Before you hit the thumb, before you play the thumb, you put your ring finger on the very next string, and as soon as you pluck, you put the remaining finger on the rest of the strings coming up. So now I'm plucking F, that is how we move about on the lyre using the plucking method. If we are doing scales. Now, if we are doing scales on the glide method, we actually need to use both hands. So the ring finger will always play the E, your left hand ring finger, and your index finger will always play the B. So that's why when you're watching videos of people playing chromatic lyre, you see their fingers always resting on certain strings. That is what they are doing. It allows them to balance the lyre and allow stability for the lyre, as well as play those notes as needed. So you would take your middle finger or your ring finger, whichever one you want to do, and you place them, your ring finger on the C and your middle finger on the D, or if you want to use middle finger on C and index finger on D, that is fine as well, whichever one you're comfortable with. I tend to use the middle finger, and then E, and then you put your three fingers. F gets the ring finger, G gets the middle finger, and A gets the index finger. And as soon as I pluck that F, I am going to place my E back on the string and be ready to play, because that helps me hold on to the lyre. And I lift and I press B with this finger, and then C, and I'm ready to go back to my C string. Again, Let's do that together. Your ring finger goes on E, your index finger goes on B. Decide for yourself which one you want to use. I am going to be using my middle finger on C, ring index finger on D. I'm gonna do it very slowly so you can see exactly what I'm doing. I'm gliding on C. So that is how we move in the scales. Now, if you are going to be using chords to go along with it, a lot of the songs that we can play on the diatonic lyre, there's slightly a different approach that I use that probably in the chromatic world don't use as much, is I tend to use my right hand finger the most, because I find that if I am playing chords, it's so much easier to get a clear sound when you play them together with your right hand. And then I am using my left hand mainly for stability, or if I wanted to add an extra note to give that chord an embellishment, or if I am reaching a note that is not so accessible for me right now with the right hand, because it's doing something else, or it's just because it can't reach it. So for example, here I'm gonna do a C chord, and a C chord is created using a C and an E and a G. And at this point, if I wanted to do a larger chord, which means I want to add the C on the top, then I would go ahead and use my thumb, my left thumb, to add that in. So it will now sound like this: C, E, G, C. So you really pay attention to what you're doing with your hand, and the fingers that you will use is dictated by the notes that you want to play. So again, that's how I would play a chord. And I would do that if I am doing an accompaniment for a song, or if I'm singing a song and I want to do an accompaniment and I'm using the chord. That's probably the pattern that I would use. There's a lot more into playing using the glide method, and it's gonna be too long for me to do it here. It's gonna be a much more in-depth tutorial, but I just wanted to give you kind of an indication to get you started on how to use your fingers and where your fingers would land. Do pay attention to the way you use your fingers. Just like with the harping method, you don't want too much tension happening on your hand, so you want to be able to release your fingers as you're gliding off. Don't make them so stiff, because that will create aches and pains for you later on, and you don't want that. You want your hand to be relaxed, and at any time once you finish gliding, allow your finger to relax. Don't keep it like so stiff like this, and put so much pressure on your fingers on your hand, because that is not necessary to get beautiful tone. The more relaxed you are, the better the sound that you'll make. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Again, I will try and do a much more in-depth tutorial on fingering for the glide method, but this should give you a good starting point, and it should help out when we do our song challenge. So that's it for now, and I hope you enjoy this, and happy playing!